Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a brother that I have had the pleasure of knowing for well over 40 years. This gentleman and we went to school together back in elementary school, growing up in Chicago. And now we've since, of course, over the years, migrated our way down to the state of Texas and doing our thing. But this brother has always been a very soft spoken brother, but very good brother, and it's cool to have him on the show today. Not only to share his story, but it's kind of a reunion of sorts for us because we literally have not had an opportunity to chop it up with each other in such a long time, and so you're in for a treat today. This brother is a husband. He is a father, and most importantly, he's a man of God, and he's taken time out of his very busy schedule to hang out with us a little bit, to share a little bit of his story, with the hopes of encouraging and inspiring and uplifting others, especially when it comes to how to deal properly with the adversities and challenges of life. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you my longtime brother and friend, Mr. Keith Mahon. Keith, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Brother Joseph. Actually,
Absolutely.
I pronounce it Mahon.
I'm
Keith Mahon.
sorry. I'm
You
sorry.
got
I
it.
done said it. Mahon. I'm sorry. I'm saying your
Mahon.
name wrong already. Getting it wrong. Mahon. Keith
Yeah.
Mahon. I'm sorry,
Uh-huh.
my brother. So,
You
but
good.
again, Keith, thank you again for being on with me. And, before we jump off into our segments for today, I do want the audience to have a chance to get to know a little bit about you, who you are, where you're from, what you do. So if you would kind of share with them just a little snippet of who is Keith Mahon.
All right. Keith Mahon. I grew up in Chicago for about 16 years, relocated to Houston back in 86. So I've been in Texas since 86. Graduated from Lamar University in Texas. Maybe some of you heard of it. Small university. I graduated as a civil engineer, so I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. My focus is roadway design, so I'm a highway designer. Been married a long time, about 30 years plus. Have two kids, grandkids actually. Granddaughter was born last month, so uh, just a working man with a wife and kids and just living life, just taking it one day at a time, brother Justin.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. And it's just so crazy to hear, like I said, we're both parents, like I said, you've stepped into the grandparent realm now and doing your thing. And as I shared with you before we got started today, I've had a chance to follow you. Of course, connect with you over social media and just beautiful family that you have. And
Thank you.
I'm just really happy and proud to see how God has moved in your life and covered you throughout these years, man. You're looking good. It's been a long time, and I'm excited that you're with me today and excited to hear your story. So, with that said, we're gonna jump right into it, man. We're not gonna hold up everybody. So, um, I'm a firm believer, when it comes to our telling of our stories, our journeys, our walks in life. You really can't capture the full essence of it all if you don't start from where it all begins. That foundational basis that makes that makes the essence of what that story is leading you to. We don't really have an idea of how much those beginning moments impact what ultimately leads us into our purpose in life and the experiences that God chooses for us to experience. So, with that said, I want you to kind of take this moment to reflect back, think back to your childhood days, man, and if you would share with our audience, going back to the days in Chicago, what was it like for you growing up? Fond memories that you have about growing up, as well as if there was any challenging moments as well that you encountered that you'd like to share. You can do that as well, but kind of give the people a glimpse of what was it like in the beginning of your story for you.
No problem, brother Joseph. Yeah, I grew up in one of the toughest parts of Chicago. I grew up in a Robert Taylor homes. Those were some housing projects that were very close to Beasley. I didn't grow up right next to Beasley, but down the street, and in Robert Taylor homes. My family has always been strong. We took our challenges one day at a time. But Robert Taylor was our home. I spent my elementary years at Beasley, Joseph, where we actually met. I went to Lindblom High School from our freshman to sophomore years before moving to Houston. And one of my fondest memories from life in Robert Taylor was actually playing baseball. good young athlete. And that time playing baseball kept me busy with the fun activity, kept me out of trouble. And looking back, we were blessed to make it out of Robert Taylor with no major hiccups and no major complications. But one of the biggest issues we had, as children, was our mom being diagnosed with lung cancer. When I have two brothers, I had two sisters and two brothers, and we were all primarily young teenagers when mom was diagnosed with cancer. But that was our biggest challenge, just seeing mom fight that battle with cancer.
Mm, mm.
So just time, playing sports and Robert Taylor, and those were some of my fondest memories. And I guess the biggest challenge was just mom being diagnosed with cancer.
Wow, wow.
Mhm.
Well, I appreciate your transparency and sharing that, and and even in what you talked about those beginning moments. Obviously, I'm very familiar with the Robert Taylor projects homes. Of course, they don't exist anymore, but
Right.
at that time, that was one of the largest housing projects in the nation, and it did had a reputation of being a very dangerous space to live in. So for a young brother like you to grow up in that environment and be here today to a college graduate, a successful
Mhm.
engineer, a
Mhm.
family man. I mean, it truly does speak volumes because unfortunately there were a lot of people who didn't make it through, in
Right.
spite of those conditions. And of course, as you stated, we went to school at that time. Our school, for those who don't know, it was called Beasley Academic Center, and
Hmm.
it was still a relatively new magnet school at the time that we went to it, and it was a big deal in the city of Chicago at that time to go to what was considered to be a very high end public school, where
Right.
ironically it was so popular and so well established to the point where you traditionally see schools like this in predominantly white neighborhoods, where here you had it in a predominantly black neighborhood staring right across the street from Robert Taylor homes.
Uh-huh.
And instead of black kids being bused literally to go to school, you had white kids trying to get bused to go to our to go to school. We had predominantly black teachers for the most part. Most of us were again, black students, so it was
Mhm.
good to be around other bright, intelligent black
Right.
kids who didn't necessarily come from, the wealthiest of homes. We had a few people, obviously, that came from well to do households, but many of us came from, meager means and such. And our parents were making big sacrifices every day just to keep clothes on our back and food on the table. So it was good to just be in that environment, in such a positive and uplifting environment. And one of the things too that you pointed out, and I've never been an athlete, that even though in my mind I've always loved sports,
Uh-huh.
that's never been a gift of mine. But one thing that I always loved to play growing up in sports was baseball,
Right.
which again, when you think about in today's times, baseball is not traditionally, the young black man's sport of
Yeah.
choice. But when we were kids coming up, there were a lot of black kids who played baseball even more so than basketball. That
And
was just
so,
a thing that we did. We loved to play the sport. We loved to get home and watch the Cubs and the White Sox games on TV and stuff like that. I mean, that was our thing, so it's always exciting to hear you. I should say, it is exciting to hear you mention about that love
mm,
for baseball, because I too, that was my sport that I was somewhat good at, and I probably wish I would have done more with it. I didn't, but I did enjoy loving to play it, like as much as I had a chance to do so. So,
yeah.
but those were the things that we were able to do. We didn't have the accesses to club sports and things like that as kids. So we out in the parks doing our thing, playing strikeout or playing, catching a game wherever we can catch it, wherever we could fit in to do our thing. So, some
Strikeout. Uh-huh.
right, right.
Yeah.
So those are definitely some fond memories, man. And then it kept us out of trouble, man. We were kids from the street light rule era and all of that good stuff. So, but we grew up in homes with, even if it was single parent homes with
Mm,
strong moms that were looking out for us, making sure that, again, that we were at least put in position to have a chance at being successful in life. And
yeah.
so shout out to your mom for doing that for you and your family, and the same with me. Shout out to my mom for
Hmm.
showing that same love and concern for our education and our overall well-being in life. So
There you
appreciate you
go.
sharing that.
No problem. Yeah, just what I was gonna say is by the grace of God, because
Mhm.
like you said, it's one of the biggest housing projects, gang violence, drug violence, bullets flying over our heads. But
Mhm.
by the grace of God, we got through
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. Give God all the glory for that.
it.
So
Amen.
yeah, man. Um, So now you make your way through, your youth. First starting off in Chicago, then transferring over into Houston area. You,
Hmm.
you you reach your adulthood, get your college degrees, just starting that adult life, and one of the things that we learn about life, if you live long enough, there are going to be not only a series of experiences that you'll come across, but there's also going to be a series of storms that you encounter along the way. And sometimes the storms that hit our paths hit a little heavier than
Hmm.
just the traditional everyday to day type stuff. And so, with that said, I'm curious if you would share with us a time where you felt like, hey, I was in the middle of a storm, and this storm was, again, not like the normal stuff. This was something that maybe you had some doubts about, how am I going to get through this moment in life, with everything that I've lived through and gone through. This weight is a little bit more burdensome for me. This is a little bit more heavier for me. What was that story that you were going to share with us? That experience like for you, as you were going through? You're here today, so we know you made it through God's grace. But kind of walk us through, what was that experience like for you, and what was ultimately the turning point where you saw yourself kind of coming up out of that storm that you experienced that you're about to share with us?
Oh, no problem, bro, Joseph. Let me walk you through it. One of the biggest, or not the biggest challenge I'm facing right now is a diagnosis that I have. It's called spastic paraplegia. And I was diagnosed in December 2015. A spastic paraplegia is very uncommon, so let me explain. It's a neurological condition that affects the muscles, right? And my condition affects my leg muscles. So, my muscles get extremely tight. So I have to take this muscle relaxer. I actually have a pump. I have a abdominal pump. It's a pump that's inside my body that pumps muscle relaxer to my nervous system that's supposed to loosen my leg muscles. But anyway, uh, now I use walking aids for short distances, and I use a scooter for long distances. So I really don't walk much. I'm actually using walking aids, uh, and it's a rare condition affecting only about 20,000 Americans.
Hmm.
20,000 Americans, that's a small number, right? Like a small stadium. That's a small basketball stadium. That's how many people that are affected. Now, there are a lot of people with the condition, but sometimes the condition doesn't move to the next level, right? But only about 20,000 people have this condition, 20,000 Americans. I was diagnosed at age 45, right? And looking back, my walk was always different, but I was, I was able to make it through. I mean, I was an athlete. I played baseball, as I mentioned, but there was this hidden uh, condition in me, right? Um, like I said, I played baseball. I did all these things. Uh, but about age 40, um, these challenges started to arise. So it wasn't until it took, so I went to my doctor at age 40 and I said, "Hey, doc, I'm having these walking issues." I was running, uh, I would run every now and then just to get some exercise. And my right foot was, what I'm saying, would start dragging. So that was the start of my condition. So I went to my doctor. I said, "Hey, doc, my foot is dragging." And he says, "Keith, that sounds like a neurological condition." So he sent me to a neurologist. And Joseph, it took them 5 years to figure out that I had this condition. Uh, Actually, it's called hereditary spastic paraplegia, but I don't put the hereditary on it.
Hmm.
By God's grace, I'm the last one with it. But anyway, uh, it's called hereditary spastic paraplegia, and that's the issue I'm dealing with right now. And so my faith in God kind of keeps me going. Uh, you know, uh, it was really a mental challenge at first, just having to deal with it mentally. So that was my first major challenge, just, figuring out, because for 45 years I was able to move around freely, right?
Mm-hmm.
45, it started to progress. Now I'm 54 and I had to use some walking aids, but, just, you know, grace, I had to pray for peace. And, so now I have the peace of God and you know, that peace kind of gets me going,
Wow.
gets me, keeps me going.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, man, I appreciate your transparency. And obviously, I had no idea that you were going through that.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's a good thing. I mean, and when I say that I had no idea that you were going through that, it's not just because you and I haven't had a chance to speak and talk with each other. Again, it's just when I do have a chance to witness what's going on in your life,
Yeah.
you always, and I capture that in photos and things of that
Mhm.
nature on your social media page. You
Mhm.
always look like you are a man filled with joy, filled with
Mhm.
happiness, loving life. And that's kind of hard to do when you're going through a situation like you just described,
Yeah.
and it's not even something that you can even fake. It's like, I'm hurting. I'm going through. There's some limitations that are being placed on me physically.
Mhm.
And, I didn't see this coming and I'm still a young man, and I'm like, how is this happening? Why is this happening to me? And we don't necessarily always know the answers to these things, but,
Mhm.
one of the things that we do know is that we serve a God that doesn't make mistakes. And every now and then, especially in these days and times when
Mhm.
especially as a father, as a husband in the home, man of God, you're trying to do everything to be the provider for your family, to make sure that they're
Right.
living, they're having a life of abundance, in opportunities and things of that nature. And sometimes, when we kind of get on the go, I've experienced this personally in my own life. When we get on the go and we get focused on all of those things, sometimes even if we're not trying to, we get a little distance, a little separated from that time that we should be spending with God. And
Right.
so sometimes he has to allow that storm, if you will, to come into our
Mhm.
lives, not to hurt us, not to bring us down or anything like that, but just to kind of slow us down for a moment, to bring us to a pause, if you will, so that we can redirect our attentions back on him, so that we don't get so caught up in all the blessings and everything that he's done for us, but remembering more importantly where it's coming from, and not getting so busy with life and all that's going on in it that we kind of forget them, because it's real easy for us to do. Again, been guilty of it, especially if life has been good to you, good
Yeah.
job and money is right and the life is good and kids are good and all that kind of stuff. We can get caught up in that. And then there's the other element to it as well. Again, everybody's storms is different, but truth
Mhm.
is with you going through what you're going through, being able to talk about it as you've spoken about it in such a transparent way, and
Mhm.
again, yet still having a smile on your face. I can see even right now, I can see the joy that's in you, that you're grateful to just be alive, grateful for the opportunity to just be able to still move about, even if it's with the assistance of what of special aids or what have you. That is a powerful testimony, because there's somebody right now who is going through maybe a health concern of their own,
Right.
and they have allowed the enemy to step in and make them go into this depressive state, go into this
Mhm.
woe is me state, where they're so focused on what's wrong, and they're
Mhm.
forgetting to be grateful for what is right, what is good, what God has done for you. And even in the midst of their storm, how God is sustaining them. You talked
And-
about that in your sharing of your story just now about, you know, you know, the peace that God has given you, that peace of
Right.
mind, so that way you're not always sitting around day in and day out stressing and pressing about what your condition is. You're saying, okay, Lord, you gave me this. It's not what I signed up for. It's not what I would have asked for, but it's here. But I know you got me. I know you got my family. I,
Right.
I know you haven't left me just because of my circumstances. And I'm thankful for that. And I feel that in your story and in your presentation of it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a lesson that we all can benefit from. That no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what you're dealing with, no matter what obstacles that you're up against, when you have that relationship with God, you're never alone. And as long
Right.
as you're not alone because He's in your life, then you got nothing to worry about. He's going to get you through this. Whether
Amen.
he heals you of that or not, we don't know. But even if He doesn't, He's going to make sure that you're going to be all right. I believe that.
Amen.
And I love the fact that as you were giving us the technical name of your disease, how you said, I'm intentional about leaving the hereditary part off,
Amen.
because I'm saying this is not
From the
going to
lesson.
carry on to anybody else along my line in the family. I know that, by rule it says that it can and it should, but I'm claiming the victory that it stops with me, that I'm the one that bears this for the sake that nobody beyond me, my grandkids kids, they won't have to worry about that, because
Amen.
I took on that burden for them. But
Amen.
through God's grace, through God's mercy, I'm taking the weight on that, so they don't have to worry about that. They don't have to feel that. They don't have to experience that. And I believe that God sometimes will put things, He will allow certain things to come down our way because we've been equipped to be able to handle it better than maybe somebody else in the family or somebody else that's near and dear to us can handle it. And
Right.
so we take on that burden, we take on that weight with God's covering and protection, so that we can be an example of how to walk in and deal with and process, those storms. The right way to do it, not the frowned up, crying all the time, miserable all the time. No,
Amen. Amen. Amen.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you've been too good to us. So yeah, I'm sorry. Go
Man.
ahead.
Oh yeah. So just yeah, that was my thing. The mental thing was, I'm the breadwinner. Like, so what if I can't do this? What if I can't continue to bring home the bread? And
Mm-hmm.
that was the mental thing, right? So I had to kind of get over that and say, well, you know, I just have to trust God for the grace to get through it, right? And my apostle, my pastor, he did a lesson. It was about something, I don't know what he was talking about, but he made a point. He was using one of his friends as an illustration, but he said his friend was happy with his cans, not his aluminum cans. He was happy with his cans, what he can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So his lesson wasn't about his friend that can. It was about someone. But that's what I got from the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
From the lesson, the message he gave about his friend was happy about what he could do, his cans.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when I'm going through some challenges, and just you brought up a point about what we can't do or challenges. I'm just thankful for my cans, what I can do. So I always tell God, I said, well, thank you for my cans, Father. Thank you for my cans.
Mm-hmm. And that's so important, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's because it's all about being grateful is what it
Uh-huh.
boils down to. I can sit here and make a laundry list about all the stuff I wish I had
Uh-huh.
and I wish didn't go on and wish didn't happen and all that. But when do I spend that same kind of energy
Mm-hmm.
and saying, Lord, thank you for waking me up today. Thank you that while
Uh-huh.
I might not have all the clothes in the closet that I would love to have, that I have clothes, that I may not have the biggest house on the block, but I have a house, that I might
Mm-hmm.
not have all of the delectable items of food on the shelf and in the refrigerator, but I do have food.
Right.
I don't have
Right.
the fanciest car, but I do have transportation. I
There
don't
you
have the,
go.
the highest paying job, but I have a place of employment that
Mm-hmm.
pays me to support my family and take care of our basic needs and then some. So when you sit back and, as you said, the cans,
Right.
focusing on the cans, focus on the things that I do have,
Uh-huh.
instead of complaining and about why I don't have this and why don't, and comparing our stuff with everybody else's stuff and getting
Right.
caught up in that. No,
Right.
I'm actually okay. Yeah, I got some
Mhm.
things that I would love to be better, but
Right. Right.
I got God and His peace, His joy, His
Mhm.
calm. My ability to tap into that means so much to me. It allows me to withstand the storms that I'm going through.
Right.
It
Right.
allows me to not allow that storm to defeat me, to take me out. In fact, I have an opportunity to come up out of that storm stronger, better, wiser than I was even before I went through it to start with. So
Amen.
I love your mindset. I love your approach. And again, for anybody that's checking out the episode, please don't take this lightly of what my brother is saying here. I mean, it's
Amen.
so important because we're all one moment away, one surprise doctor visit away,
Mm-hmm.
or one circumstance away from being in a similar situation, whether it's a health scare, whether it's a job loss, whether it's, some other financial challenge that comes along the way. Any of
Yeah.
those things can happen to us at any given time. So none of us are immune from storms. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when,
Amen.
but what our response to those storms is, that's a big thing. What is our response to the storms when they do come? And who are we in relationship with? In those moments, who can we lean on? Who can we count on? First and
Right.
foremost, we can count on God. And then if we've been extra blessed, He surrounded us with a village. In your case, you got wife and kids who I know love on you and support
Mm-hmm.
you, and they're there for you. Maybe you
Amen.
have some close buddies who, are cheering you along, and when you're having some of those down days, they can perk you up and say, "It's gonna be all right, Keith. You're gonna be good, man. Just hang in there, keep fighting."
Amen.
That's what matters the most, man. And so I appreciate you sharing that, man. Such a
No
powerful
problem.
story.
No problem. No problem. But
Absolutely.
if I have one last point on that
Sure.
team issue. So, I'm going through this thing, and so I'm more empathetic to people with challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So, but some people have less challenges than me. Some people have more. So, I don't want to say, well, I'm going through this because it can be worse. It could be a little better. But anyway, you know, God gave, God allowed me to go. He didn't give it to me, but He allowed me to go through it. So I'm thankful for the grace to get through it. But it could be worse. It could be less. But anyway,
Absolutely. Very well said. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So to that,
yeah.
when you do find yourself going through challenges, I mean, obviously you've shared a couple of them that you've had to experience, but just in general, whether it's something major that's going on in your life, or even if it's just the day to day stuff that, we encounter that we consider to be challenges or moments of adversity. What I'm curious to hear from you is what is the process? What is the routine that you like to go through that kind of helps you stay locked in and focused, keeping a level head while you're processing through whatever the challenging moment is of the day for you. If you would kind of tell us what is your recipe for that in handling the dealing with adversities and overcoming challenges.
All right, no problem, Joe. So I'm gonna go back to my past a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't go to church as a young man. I didn't grow up in a church home. I spent my summers as a young kid with grandma, and I was saved. I received Jesus as a young teen. She actually took me to church, and we were shown a video about hell
Mm-hmm.
that scared me into salvation. So I was scared into salvation as a young kid. And thankfully, I was a part of the family of God as a young teen. But I didn't find the church until my late 20s. My late 20s. In '97, I was invited to New Light Christian Center Church, where I became a member and have been a member ever since. I was not a bad person as a young man, but I felt something missing. I joined New Light Church and learned how to use biblical principles to help my life walk. There I learned that challenges come to the just and the unjust. No one is exempt from life challenges, and New Light Church has taught me how to use biblical principles to trust God for healing and strength into full manifestation of healing. Spiritual healing, physical healing, emotional healing, whatever. I use biblical principles for my healing. And I'm thankful that New Light Church has sown seeds into my life. And actually, those seeds were sown even before I was diagnosed with this condition. So that those seeds sown helped me to get through it. All right. So uh, to answer your question, Joseph, uh, it's my trusting in the biblical principles that helped me to. So I've learned that the Bible So the Bible isn't just a bunch of uh, special verses. It's actually stories about people that went through things. So so I've learned in my church about you draw on some principles from the Bible, and I'm able to use biblical principles to help me get through challenges in life.
Love that,
So
man.
yeah,
And I appreciate you giving that backdrop because I think that was important, and I'm glad you did that because there's a lot of kids growing up who, whether they went to church or not, their first experiences with church involved,
mm,
maybe being whether it was a video that they got a chance to watch or just some maybe some relative in the family that kind of pushed God upon them. You're going to be
right,
saved, you're going to get baptized, you're going to be this and that. And so you just kind of go along with it because you're a kid and that adult figure told you that that's what you had to do. But you really haven't had an
uh-huh,
opportunity to know God for yourself. You just kind of did it by, as you said, like kind of by force, if you will, or by fear. I was
mm,
scared into
yeah,
salvation, you know. And so here you
uh-huh,
were. Yeah, you had technically gone through the process of being saved, but then there was still, as you said, there was still something missing. And so God, over the
mm,
years, He navigated you to a church home, a space that you could
mm-hmm,
feel that you could identify with, that you could be comfortable with, as well as a space that would teach you, as you stated, biblical principles that you can apply to day to day life and things that you would deal with. And so, what I heard you say was that it was in that experience that you began to know God for yourself.
yes,
It was no longer a thing of I'm only connecting with God because I was forced into it, or I'm scared to not do it because of a parent saying something to me or a loved one saying something to me. I'm now knowing God for myself. I'm now receiving His word. I'm now hiding that word in my heart. I'm now applying that word to my day to day walk. And your ability to do that, as you stated, it had positioned you. It was necessary for you to go through that process and ultimately build up your faith, build up your spiritual connections to God, and your identification with that relationship with God, so that as the challenges, so as the adversities, so as the storms would come down the road, including the one that you're currently dealing with your health
yeah,
condition, you now see that situation a whole lot differently than say you would have had you not gone through that journey. And so that's why it's so
mm,
important for us to reiterate the fact that God makes no mistakes, that nothing is random that God does, that it's not a lucky happenstance moment that took place. It was all designed and lined up for you to be in position so that as
mhm,
the storms of life came along, including the ones that were going to directly impact you, you would be ready to handle it. You'd actually be able to withstand it. It wouldn't take you out, because without that foundational base in Christ, this takes you out.
yes,
You're not prepared for it. You go into this, like I said, this funk, if you will, this depressive state, this I give up mindset, but now you're able to handle it a whole lot better. And again, doesn't mean that you don't have rough days. I'm sure you do,
mm,
but that's not the dominating presence of you. And even in those days where you wake up and you may not be feeling your best self, whether it's because of pain that you're experiencing physically or just in your emotions or in your mental, that per those biblical principles that you've been taught and that you've embraced and that you've gravitated to, that I got a source that I can tap into that will instantaneously take all of that stress and worry and fear and feeling sorry for myself up off of me and remind me that, hey, I serve a God that's got my back. I'm covered, I'm protected, I'm shielded, I'm good.
amen.
So I love that how you pivoted that and shared that, because I think it was so critical and so important from not only for myself but anybody that's listening to understand that connection, why that relationship is so important, and why those biblical principles being applied to your day-to-day walk matter so much, and why you have to constantly stay in that. If it's not something that you do every day, I mean, because even myself, we fall off from time to time. You kind of have your run where you're constantly in your word, you're doing what you're supposed to do, and then sometimes life happens and you get a little drifted off from it. That's okay. Get back on track, get back locked in, and keep on gravitating to that. Keep on holding on to it. Keep on drowning yourself, immersing yourself in it. And it'll help you get through, especially the most challenging of times. It'll help you get through it. And even in the good times, it'll help you appreciate the good moments that you do have, the blessings that you are getting. So,
Yeah,
love that.
yeah, and Joseph, so we both went to Beasley. We were
Mm-hmm.
smart kids, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we were book smart. So, but I'm learning that we need God. For I'm just gonna give my own testimony. I've been book smart, so I've been able to figure things out in life. Figure things out. But some things we need God, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I was counting on Keith for 50 years, just figuring it out. Solving the problem. I'm an engineer, so I made the equation. A plus B equals C, right? So solving the equation, but some things some things we can't solve. We have
Mm-hmm.
to put it in God's hands, right? And not to say that God gave me this, but this has allowed me to trust Him. So now, yeah, I thank God for my book sense, but I thank Him for grace to get through things. So the
Mm-hmm.
point is, we we need God. We do need God for life.
Yes.
And God helps you through life. You know, helps you
That,
through the bad times. He's with you in the good times. You don't realize it because you're feeling good, but he's there in the good, and he's also there, through those challenges. But the
mm-hmm.
point is, we need God.
Yep. Absolutely. We need God. And I think the one thing that you just said in this last portion of your sharing of your testimony is that for 50 plus years, I was relying on Keith.
Yeah.
So that meant that I was thinking that I could fix everything. I could
Uh,
solve all the problems. I could resolve all the issues. I was forgetting
mm,
about who made me, who created me, who's got all the authority, all the knowledge, all the insight. Yeah, I'm gifted with book smarts. I'm a very bright brother. I know my stuff. I build
uh,
highways. Okay,
uh,
I know what I'm doing.
yeah.
But sometimes we kind of take on this role of trying to be our own superhero. We want to put on the
Right.
cape. We want to save the day. We want to do it all. We don't think it's somehow we think that we're not being strong enough. We're not being tough enough, especially as men in particular.
Uh,
If we don't take on all that weight, on all that burden, and carry it and fight through it, because we're a man, and that's what men do. Well, guess what? It doesn't matter if you're a man. Doesn't matter if you're a woman. God didn't build you in such a way that you were going to be independent of him. That's
right.
not what he intended you to be. He didn't intend for us to be totally helpless, which is why he instilled with us certain gifts, certain skill sets, certain talents, if you will. But
Right.
he still left an opening in us that required for us to have long-term sustainability, that we had to be connected to a source that was much, much greater and higher than us. A source that could do things that we could not do, that could
Right.
open up opportunities for us that we could never open up for ourselves. We needed that source. And so that's why I said earlier in our conversation how, again, it's not about God punishing us or anything like that, but sometimes in our walk in life, God has to allow certain storms to creep into our lives.
Amen.
Again, not
Amen.
not to keep us down, but to remind
Right.
us that we are to rely upon him. And so if I give you something that you can't fix on your own, if I give you something that you can't throw some money at, that you can't put down a formula and make go away, you can't problem solve it like that. I got to give you something that you have no choice but
Right.
to rely upon him to get
Amen.
you through. So thus your condition might have been one of those moments where he said, okay, I
Yeah.
love you, my son. I love you, Keith. You doing good works. I'm proud of you, but you're a little bit too dependent on you. So
Uh-huh.
let me give you a little test of something that kind
Uh-huh.
of pause you for a moment to remind you, to refresh your memory, because I know you got a big memory. I put that big brain in you. Let me put you in a situation where you need to touch base with me. You need to connect with me.
Right.
And once you get reconnected back to me, once be reminded of that, then watch me give you that grace that you spoke of. Watch me give
Yeah.
you that mercy that you spoke of to deal with the storm that I allowed to come your way,
Mm.
because that storm can't come to you unless he allows it to come to you.
Amen.
But we just have to understand that he's not allowing it to punish you. It's not to
Right.
bring you down. It's not to take you out. It's to grow you.
Right.
It's to level you up spiritually in this case. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what he's done for you, man. And you're speaking that in everything that you've shared throughout this time we've spent together. You're speaking that very truth, man, that you've embraced those biblical principles, that you understand the value and the importance of that relationship. So that's what makes your story even that much more empowering and that much more impactful. So that's awesome, man. And I'm glad that you are revealing this as to our listeners, as well as just acknowledging it for yourself. I need God. So awesome, man. Awesome.
Amen.
So
Amen.
yes. So Keith, man, if you had a chance, if you had an opportunity to speak to the younger Keith who didn't necessarily grow up in church, the younger Keith who, even when he did first start getting connected with church, he got connected out of fear, not necessarily out of knowing, the true essence of why he was doing it. If you had a chance to speak to him, to pour into him some encouraging words, some empowering words that would help him, or perhaps somebody that is going through right now some of the same challenges that you used to go through, maybe the same mindset that you used to have, that used to, be accustomed to trying to handle all the weights and everything on themselves, trying to do it all without God. What would be your words of inspiration and encouragement to, again, the younger you or somebody that is currently like the younger version of you?
Got you, brother. Yeah, my advice will be to understand that challenges come to everyone in life. Challenges come to the good and the bad, right? No one is exempt. So, as we talked about, Joseph, God allows us to go through things. And so I lean on 1 Corinthians 10:13, and that says that God would not put us through anything that He doesn't give us a way out of. No, the scripture says, no temptation is taking you, such as common to man. But I've heard some translations say, no temptation, trial, or test is taking you, but such as common to man. But God will not allow you to be tempted, try to test it above that you're able. So He will give you the way out. So I would just share that whatever you're going through, young Keith, young person, just trust God to get you through it. And we have to realize that God is not surprised by our challenges. God made the end from the beginning. He knows what you're going through. He's not punishing you. Challenges aren't punishments. Challenges are what they are, challenges. So just trust God to get you through that challenge. We have everything available in us to overcome. We just have to pray and thank God for deliverance, for strength, for wisdom to get us through those situations. And and Joseph, I said earlier, we have these book smarts, but we have to, whatever talents you have, don't trust your own self, and trust or use that talent to glorify God. So I would tell my young Keith, okay, let God work with you, work with the book sense, and glorify Him. So use your talents for God, not for selfish reasons, but use trust God and whatever you're going through, but use your talents to glorify Him. Because after all, that's what we're here for. We're here. I know that now I'm 50 years old, but we're here to glorify Him. So use your talents to glorify God.
Love that, because as you said, we were created to serve, and
Uh-huh.
and those skills, those gifts, those talents, He's imparted in us to do. But
Mm-hmm.
even with all of that, He didn't expect us to fly solo in this. We are to still stay connected with Him, because He's going to be our guide. He's going to be our conscience. He's going to be our director of how we are to properly use these talents, these gifts, these skill sets, so that we don't run the risk of misusing them, misabusing them,
Uh-huh.
misappropriating them. We need Him to help us with that, as well as when we're going through. We need to know how to properly process this. If we go into it alone, flying solo, doing it the way we think it should be done, we can make a
Mm-hmm.
matter that's challenging worse than what it needs to be. All because we're trying to fix it ourselves. We're trying to solve our own problems, you know. So when we talk
Mhm.
about God not putting on you more than you can bear, um, it's not. I've always interpreted that as it's not so much that you can't bear it. I think that there are, in other words, I think that there are certain situations and storms in life that if you tried to do it all on your own, it would be too much for you
Right.
on your own. But with God, there is nothing that's too much for you to bear because of your connection with him. That's what makes the difference. You know, that's the whole essence of you being able to survive it. For you being able to make your way through it is because of who you're connected with. You're not trying to do it all by yourself, because there's just some storms. If you try to face them all by yourself, good luck with that, because
Good.
you're taking on too much. It's too much for you, and you're setting yourself up for, tragedies and downfalls that you didn't even have to go through if you would have just, admitted to the fact that I can't do it without him. I need, as you said earlier repeatedly, I need God, and that is in everything. There's nothing that you should be excluding him from. There's nothing you should be saying, well, I need him in this area, in this area, in this area, but not these other areas. I got that. No, you don't. You need him
Right.
in all of the areas. So, and even as you and I speak this, it's something that, I ultimately have to pray on every day to keep me locked in and keep me focused and keep me remembering that, so that I don't slip off, so that I don't fall off track and try to go solo again, doing my own thing. So,
Amen.
yes, yes. So my brother, man, it has been an awesome time hanging out with you, hearing your story. You dropping your gems and your nuggets of wisdom upon us, man. I've been blessed. I know my listeners are going to be blessed as a result of your sharing of your story and your journey and just your overall perspective and mindset. But as is customary on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, before I
Mhm.
do let you go, I want to take this opportunity, man, to love on you, to celebrate you, to acknowledge you. So if you got anything going on in your life, whether it's personal or business related, some exciting news, some anything of that like, man, please do share that with us at this time, so we can celebrate you, man, because God has his hands on you, man. So I know that there's got to be something going on now or coming up that he's going to be a blessing to you or position you to be a blessing to other people. So please do share
Amen.
with us.
Well, no problem, no problem. Like I say, I'm just a regular guy. I'm a working guy. I'm a working man. But I'm a family man. But I'm happy with family. Joseph, I've been happily married for 32 years. So that's a blessing right there. You hear about these
Hmm.
marriages, people getting married for 6 months, 6 days, 6 years. Anyway, I'm married 32 years. I just had my 32nd anniversary Valentine's Day. I got married on Valentine's Day, right? And also on Valentine's Day, my granddaughter was born last
Mm.
Valentine's Day. So that's going to be a special day for us moving forward. Anniversary and granddaughter's birthday. So that's a blessing. Like I say, I have two kids. I have two grown-up kids. I started my family early. I've been married 32 years. I started my family early. So, like I said, I have two grown kids. So I'm an empty nester. But what I'm saying, I still have family with me, and on a daily basis, uh, I'm a professional engineer, so I still like to work. People ask me, what I'm saying, do I have plans on retiring? I like to work. I mean, it's not stressful for me to go to work. So I go to work. I manage designs of roadways and that kind of thing. So pretty much Monday through Friday, I'm engineering. I'm actually designing roads. In the Houston area. What I'm saying? And I go to church every week. So I didn't grow up in church, but now I'm a frequent church goer.
Hey.
So anyway, so I'm just a regular guy, just a regular working man, enjoying life.
Well, hey man, I appreciate you sharing that, and as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing regular about you, my brother. You are a man of true faith, of true courage, inspiration, empowering. Nothing regular about that, man. And as you said, we can definitely celebrate 32 years going strong in a marriage, because it's very true. A lot of marriages are not barely surviving a few months. No less talking about 32 years, man. And so for you to see your kids grow up and lead their lives, and now you're entering into the grandparent stages, you're empty nester, all
Right.
of those things, man, are things to celebrate. And like you said, and then the fact that you still love your work. You love what you do. You're passionate about it, man. It's got to be even just kind of crazy. I was sitting there thinking as you were talking about what you did for a living. I'm like, just imagining you driving down a highway or street, but like, this road I'm driving on, I designed this, that I'm riding on. This is
That's it.
wild to just even be able to say that.
Uh-huh.
That I'm driving on a road that I created, by design. So I mean, it's awesome, man. So nothing regular about you, brother. And so we just gonna speak that right now. Nothing regular about you.
Amen.
Yeah, I'm very proud of you, man. I'm happy for you. It's great to connect with you, man, and we're gonna do a better job of staying connected, especially since we're not that far away from each other. So
Amen. Amen.
as
Amen.
we shared offline, man, if you in the area or I'm in the area, we definitely got to link up, man. We too close for that to not happen. And so I'm just happy to engage with you and connect with you again. And for my audience, if you've enjoyed our podcast today, enjoyed the information that we've shared, the empowering stories that we've shared, please like, please subscribe, please share, please comment. Because here's the Blessings in the Street podcast. This is what it's all about: the sharing of our stories, being transparent, being authentic, with the hopes of helping others be able to properly address and deal with challenging and adverse moments, letting you know that no matter what it is that you're going through, it doesn't mean that it's the end of your story. It doesn't mean that you don't have a way of overcoming it or working your way through it. But there is a key factor. There is a key factor involved that we've expressed repeatedly throughout the show, and that is having that relationship with God. Quit trying to do life by yourself. I don't care how smart you are, how many degrees you got, how much money you got in the bank. All of that is great and fine. Thank God for that. But He wants a relationship with you. So if you don't have that, I promise you, and I'm sure Keith would co-sign on this, it'll be the best decision that you'll ever make. He loves you
Amen.
unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for you, and He'll be there for you through the good times and even through those challenging moments. So remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. You keep persevering. You keep staying connected with God. Build on that relationship. Allow Him to be a part of every facet of your life. It'll be the best decision that you'll ever make. He wants nothing but the best for you. Allow Him to be your guiding, your eyes, your ears, your covering of protection through it all. And not only will you be blessed and your family will be blessed, but you will be having an opportunity presented to you to be a blessing to others. So until next time, I'll see you later. Tune in to us. Keep watching us for more exciting stories, more empowering stories. We'd love to have you aboard, and thank you for tuning in. See you next time.